What is up, everybody? This is Recap Rewind. I'm JLAG, and I'm here with
NBEA, and this is a very special episode of our interview with Mark Consuelos. We get to sit down with him and talk about Hiram Lodge as a character in Riverdale, what that means for the rest of the season, playing a bit of the dark side and the light side that Hiram Lodge is, kind of good versus evil.
Check it out.
So we know Hiram Lodge to be kind of like a dark, shady character.
Yeah.
What's it like playing with that dark side?
So much fun. You know, recently the roles that I've had have kind of gone in that they've been of that ilk, which I'm not sure if it's a comment on me and my personality but I don't care because, you know, I used to just play the good guys or, you know, like kind of like the Archie types, you know, like the
Right.
hero and that good guy. But recently I've been given the opportunity to play these more complex characters with a dark side. And I think the trap in a Hiram and playing this character would be just for him to just be just bad, just all the time bad. And so there's got to be some redeeming moments, like when he sticks up for Pop Tate, or when he, you know, protects, you know, wants to protect Archie or his daughter, or the protection he has for Veronica at any cost. He'll protect her.
For sure.
So, you know, I love that complexity. I think it's so much fun to play. Especially since it's it's this comic book film, you know, noir type show, you can go for it a little bit, you know, with the voice, and you're talking like this all the time,
Right.
and the whispers and the fireplace. I mean, that fireplace. I mean, it was just iconic, always on. It's always there, and I love our set. I love the lodge residence, and especially Hiram's study. To me, is just like I love that place.
It's very Godfather, right? And
Yeah.
I know there was a couple of references in there too. And it's sort of like that whole mob world where they're sort of justifying all the shady things that they're doing,
Right?
Because they're doing it for their family, right?
That's right.
So it's kind of like
That's right. And I think we're up to the part where Hiram is like, look, his goal is to eventually make this a legitimate business, so that it can be passed on to Veronica, and that she can run it. But I think, you know, just like any mobster or anybody that's in that kind of world, it's once you're in, it's really it's very difficult to get out, and there's only a few ways to get out. So he's trying to figure it out, and he means well, but you know, there's just at every turn he's got to make some sacrifices.
for sure. So stepping into Hiram's fancy shoes, how do you sort of add that Mark Consuelos touch? Is there something that you sort of put into his character that we wouldn't necessarily see on screen?
You know, I do start talking about his clothes. You know, when I told you, before we started, I was talking about, I spent a long time talking to Roberto, the creator, about his character. And we delved in deep about motivation and what he's going to do, and who are his allies, and what is motivate, you know, all this stuff. And then I said, I'm going to ask you a really crazy question. He goes, what? I said, what does he wear? He goes, what? I go, what does he wear? What kind of clothes are you thinking? And we kind of got into it. He goes, I haven't thought of that. And when you say step into Hiram, that's where, you know, a lot of characters or actors kind of start on the inside. I kind of start on the outside, you know. And man, we have the best costume designer, Rebecca. She's amazing, and her whole crew of just finding these little things, like this little. I have this tie clip that's an octopus. If you watch closely, you'll see on my ties I start wearing it more. And so you'll see in the Hiram residence, you'll see an octopus every now and then, and that's kind of like because Hiram has his tentacles everywhere. So definitely the style that, you know, it's in fitted clothes, everything's crisp, everything's precise. It's kind of what, you know, of how he attacks. It's him, how he attacks life, and it starts with what he wears and his hair and his shoes, and you know, it's you know, and after so many episodes, I don't think I've done 22 episodes of a season on a show. We usually I've done 10 and 13 or 16. Right. You know, by the time you get past the 10th or 11th or 12th, you know, you're kind of like, when you show up and you put on the clothes, you're there, and then forget about it.
That's who you are. Yeah.
If you guys have ever visited the set, the production design there it's out of this world. The props and the set decorators have done such a good job. When you step on set, it's like, whoa, you're there. That high school is like, everything's so nostalgic in the show that I'm just blown away. You know, I look at these phones that we have in the Lodge residence, and it's like, wow, that's a rotary phone.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to KJ. I'm like, KJ, do you know what that is? He's like, it's a phone, mate. I go, no. Do you know this thing? And I rotate. He goes, wait, that's how you make a phone call? I'm like, yeah. He goes, yeah.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it's I don't know. I think that it goes from the wardrobe to the hair and makeup to the great words that they give Hiram. They give him some great words, but also just the whole environment that they have in Riverdale. It's easy to step into character.
Amazing. So speaking about him as a character again, what is a personality trait that you feel like you relate to with Hiram Lodge? Is there something that speaks to you about him?
Yeah, I would say that I definitely have, and not for better or for worse, probably for worse, I kind of have a you're dead to me dead type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I try to be forgiving, but once you cross me, I'm like, I can kind of,
we're done.
Now we're done. But I can see it coming, and I have a saying. I think Maya Angelou said this: when people tell you who they are, you need to listen to them. And so I kind of have that. Hiram knows who Hiram. Even when you don't think he knows who someone is, he knows who they are.
For sure.
And that's kind of what if I were to think of one of his characteristics. The other one of the more positive ones, that he's fiercely loyal to his family, and sometimes that's questioned by the end justifies the means. The means seem to be insane, but I'm fiercely loyal to my family. Not that the end justifies the means in my in real life, but for Hiram, he whatever it takes to defend his family.
For sure.
For sure.
And on that same kind of flip coin, was there a trait, or is there a trait that you feel was a little bit more challenging to channel as Hiram's character? Yeah,
listen. When I get hired to do a show, I usually have my shirt off and I'm like making out with like that's kind of like that's what you hire Consuelos to do. And I'm like, really? I mean, I had a tank top on for a minute. I didn't. And there isn't a whole lot of like heat between Hermione and Hiram, which I find, and I'm not complaining at all. I just find, because I love working with Marisol. She's fantastic. She really is. I'm so lucky to be working with her. And it's just funny. She's a beautiful woman, and she's and it's like these two characters, but there's something very kind of cold and distant, and it may come, listen, look, he found out that she was having an affair with someone else.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm talking about dead to him dead kind of situation. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but that's was kind of a weird, that's more of a challenging or kind of a different aspect of something that I haven't really done on a show before, is I kind of like to be this cold, menacing, I wouldn't say non-sexual or asexual, because I think that it's there. I just feel like, okay, cool. I'm excited about, of them, and excuse the pun, but tapping into that part of his character. That was that was such a dad joke. Oh my God. That was a dad joke.
So attaching yourself to that as well, you mentioned the whole idea of being vulnerable. In Chapter 30, which is the most recent episode that we watched, The News Titans, we finally get to see Hiram in this really vulnerable state where he doesn't really know what's going to come next for his family. And it's something that is relatively new to see this character who's been kind of a bit of a boss this whole time show a bit of vulnerability. Could you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I love that scene when they ask him what's next. Short term, long term, I have no idea, and it's the first time that he's been on the tightrope and like has so many plates in the air, and is like that juggler, going across the tightrope, and he had a blind spot. He didn't see this coming, and for the first time, he showed that vulnerability. But like any good sociopath, once somebody gets afraid, and he's a little bit afraid, and when they get afraid, they get really angry, and so he's gonna bite back. And I think that's the interesting complexity of Hiram. But I love when they give me the opportunity to show that more vulnerable side. I think it's great. I mean, it keeps him from being that guy in the corner, twisting his mustache,
For sure. And I think it's to your point. At the end of the day, you see these characters, especially now in television, you can't just be bad or dark for the sake of being dark or bad.
Right.
you're a human being and you have, your own motivations. And I think it's becoming more and more clear as you watch the show and get more attached to him and the Lodge family that, it's not just this bleak, I just want to do this because I want to like mess some stuff up. It's because you have your own reasons to do that.
Yeah. And there's some, there's some great stuff coming up in the next chapters that you guys are going to love, but
amazing.
That's the part that I find the challenging part with him is kind of having that balance and keeping him real like that.
Yeah.
So coming into the set for the second season, were there any things that you sort of had to get used to with joining the cast after they've had been filming for over a year?
It's always like you feel like you're the new kid in school, right? And I've been doing this for such a long time. And the first thing that I noticed was that, wow, the young actors on the show are so good. God, they're so good.
Yeah, really are, yeah.
I'm blown away. I was really blown away, and I got to work with almost all of them at some point. But the ones that I worked most closely with were KJ and Camila. And wow, I mean, KJ's instincts as an actor, to me, that's the first thing I noticed. I'm like, wow, this kid is a star. He really, he's playing against all these things and making it believable. And he's got such great instincts. And then Camila, forget about it. Camila is, I love working with Cammy so much. She's, again, another star. She's, I'm so excited to, I always get excited when we have scenes together. But being a new character on the show, like I said, I think, when I joined the show, people were like, look, this character's been talked about the whole first season. People were referring to him. I'm like, really? And like, yeah. And then Roberto was like, dude, you're a character on the show already. And that was a little it was a little intimidating to I just wanted to do a good job, come into it and put my little take on it. And I didn't get a lot of feedback just at first because I was wondering, like, all right, so how was that? And then I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, is that what you think, Hiram? And like, yeah, man, that's it. Yeah. That's it. Go. Go. Still, quiet, menacing, this, that. I'm like, great. All right, cool. That's the flavor you want. That's what we're going to run with.
And make sure that you guys stay tuned for the full-length interview.
Stay connected with Recap Rewind.
We are on Twitter and Instagram at recap_rewind. Also check us out on YouTube and iTunes. And also don't forget to join the conversation, like, comment, and subscribe to stay engaged. Thanks for listening. Bye.